Patrick by himself might be a bit too much. So I need to tell you about a show that has been on the air for 5 years. It's called The Patrick Star Show. It premiered in 2021, and it just got renewed through a 7th season. That's more seasons than Ed, Edd, and Eddy got. More than Billy and Mandy, more than Foster's, more than Camp Lazlo, more than Codename Kids Next Door. And I bet real money, most of you had no idea it existed. And if you did, you definitely didn't know it was around this long. So here's what this video is actually about. It's about the dumb one, the lovable idiot, Patrick, Cosmo, Ed, the character whose entire job was to not understand what was happening around him. Everybody says they're gone. Everybody says the cartoons got smart and serious and the big dumb guy got left behind. That's wrong, and I can prove it's wrong with a spreadsheet. But the feeling is real. Something did happen. Something worse than vanishing happened, actually. And the part that got me was in 2009, somebody sat down with Steven Hillenburg and asked him directly whether he would ever spin Patrick off into his own show. And he answered. He explained exactly why it wouldn't work. We're getting to that. Stay with me.
At least I'm safe inside my mind.
At least I'm safe inside my mind.
So let's establish who we're talking about, because dumb cartoon characters doing a lot of work in that sentence. I don't mean characters who are bad at school. I mean characters built out of a hole where the reasoning should be. Ed, Edd, and Eddy premiered January 1999 on Cartoon Network, Danny Antonucci's show. Ed is a kid who eats buttered toast off the floor and keeps chickens in his jacket for reasons that the show just never explains because it doesn't need to. He's enormously strong and completely harmless. He has a monobrow that you could hang a coat on. And I want to be specific about why Ed works. It's because he's funny, because he's dumb. There's not like an answer to it. Ed works because Ed is standing next to him, the other Ed, Double D, I'm talking about him. Double D is the smartest kid in the cul-de-sac. He labels things. He has a bedroom that looks like a museum exhibit about anxiety. So when Ed does something that violates physics, you don't just get the gag. You get Double D's face and Ed's face to where the joke actually lives. And then Eddy is on the other side, and Eddy is neither smart nor stupid. He's just greedy. So Ed isn't one character. Ed is one corner of a triangle. And every episode is that triangle getting dragged in 3 directions until it snaps. That's not an accident. It was clearly planned from the beginning. And we have Cosmo, the Fairly Odd Parents, March 2001, Nickelodeon, Butch Hartman. Cosmo is a fairy godparent with unlimited magical power and no capacity to use it correctly whatsoever.
As long as Cosmo didn't do anything stupid.
He is the single most dangerous character in that show, and the show knows it.
Actually, there's a funny story about that. Oops.
Darren Norris, who has voiced him for 25 years, described the character like this. He's not childish, but he's childlike. Everything is new and oh wow and great. And again, Cosmo does not work alone. Cosmo works because Wanda is right there next to him, 1 foot away. Already exhausted, I might add. She is the pressure, he is the leak, and the Fairly Odd Parents does something that 2 other shows don't. It writes the foil into the rules of the universe. Fairy godparents come in pairs. That isn't a character choice, that is the premise of the show. Timmy doesn't get a fairy, he gets 2. They're married, and they disagree, which means Cosmo structurally cannot be alone on screen without the show breaking its own logic. Just think about what that does to an episode. Timmy makes a wish. The wish itself is usually fine. The wish goes wrong generally because Cosmo is in the freaking room. And Wanda spends 10 seasons being right. She calls it every single time. She says this is a bad idea, and it is a bad idea, and nobody listens to her, and that is the joke. The joke does not exist without Wanda's existence.
That's a horrible idea.
Wanda isn't the boring one. Wanda is literally the reason that there's a show.
How dare you use language like that, young man?
Now, here's something I went looking for and I didn't find. Fans have argued For 20 years, the Cosmo got dumber as the series went on. The season 2 Cosmo was a guy who made mistakes. In season 10 Cosmo was a guy who couldn't operate a door. So I went hunting for the decision. The meeting, the note, somebody at Nickelodeon saying make him dumber. There isn't one. Or if there is, nobody has ever said it out loud or leaked it online or anything. And I think that's a more interesting answer. Honestly, nobody decided. It just drifted. 10 seasons of writers reaching for the reliable laugh, and the reliable laugh was always Cosmo not getting it. And you do that 400 times and a character just quietly turns into a single note. Now hang on to the word drifted, because it comes back later and it explains everything.
Good evening. Please step into my gamatorium.
And Patrick, don't even get me started on Patrick, dudes.
Patrick seems to be making up the rules as he goes along.
Starving, it's start time.
SpongeBob SquarePants, one of the greatest shows of all time, premieres May 1999, the biggest of all of them by far. And Bill Fagerbach, I'm sorry if I said your name wrong, has played Patrick since the beginning. And when Den of Geek asked him about it in 2013, he gave the least pretentious answer possible. When you're an actor and you're 6'6" and you look like a goofball, you're gonna play big goofballs. I love this show. I've watched the Krusty Krab Pizza episode more times than I've read most books. And the thing that still gets me isn't Patrick being dumb, it's that Patrick is dumb at somebody. He is dumb at SpongeBob, who is naive but competent. He is dumb at Squidward, who wants to die. 3 shows, 3 networks, the exact same architecture is there. The idiot is never the whole machine. He's the part that breaks so the other parts have something to do.
Harry, I don't think Patrick knows how to use a book properly.
Now, the obvious thing to say next is that they died out, that the industry moved on, that some executive killed the dumb cartoon character. I went looking for that. I really did. I wanted the villain. That was the original plan for this video, but instead I found out this. If you count American animated series that premiered per year, the stretch everybody calls the Golden Age, 1997 through 2008, averages roughly 36 new shows a year. The stretch everybody calls the Death, 2015 through 2025, averages about 56. There's no published data set of American kids animation orders that reaches back before 2018, so when somebody tells you there were more cartoons back then, including me 5 minutes ago, nobody has actually measured that. And the Archetype specifically, it's freaking everywhere. I mean, Teen Titans Go, 449 episodes and counting, by the way. The Loud House, 308. I did not know that show was that big. Solar Opposites got 6 seasons. Big City Greens is on its 5th. Crepopolis, Grimsburg, Kiff, Digman, Royal, Crackers, Rock, Paper, Scissors, Wild Pack, The Simpsons, Family Guy, and Bob's Burgers, they all got renewed through the back half of this decade in one afternoon in April 2025. Homer Simpson's under contract until roughly 2029. So no, the stupid characters didn't go anywhere. There are more of them than there have ever been, which raises a genuinely uncomfortable question. If they're all still here, why does it feel like a funeral? So here's my answer, and it took me a while to get to it. The character didn't die. The character got promoted. Somewhere along the way, somebody looked at the ratings or the merch numbers or a focus group or some other nonsense and noticed that the big dumb guy was getting the biggest laughs. And they did the thing that seems obvious and is actually fatal. They gave him his own show. And to explain why that kills him, I have to go back further than cartoons. Like, a lot further. In 1915, a guy named Brett Page wrote a manual called Writing for Vaudeville. It's a how-to book for people writing 2-man comedy acts, and it's startlingly blunt about how the machine works. The comedian has nearly all the laugh lines, and the straight man feeds him. That's the industry term. The straight man is not the boring one. The straight man is the supply line. Take him away and the comedian is standing in an empty room saying things. Wanda, perfect example. Squidward or SpongeBob to Patrick, another perfect example. Even if you want to go a little bit newer, without Benson on the ass of Rigby and Mordecai, what the hell is regular show? And this isn't just vaudeville trivia. Ken Levine wrote for MASH, Cheers, and Frasier, and he has said the quiet part directly about Joey, the Friends spinoff. They just took a character and plopped him down in a different setting. And I want to be fair here because Levine is not universally right about this. In November 2025, the Los Angeles Times, Robert Lloyd went back and watched Joey and called it, and I quote, a pleasing, funny show. So it's not a law of physics. It's just a load-bearing wall, and you can remove a load-bearing wall. You just have to know that you're doing it. And then there's one more piece, and it's the mechanism. In 2018, a critic named Lily Loughborough wrote about Silicon Valley losing one of its characters, and she nailed what happens to whoever's left behind. Dinesh used to be sharp, but there are moments when his most recent incarnation seems barely functional. That's it. That's the entire disease. When you take away the person that a character is reacting to, the character doesn't stay the same. He gets louder, he gets broader. The one trait that used to be a contrast becomes the only setting that he now has. And a French philosopher called this in the year 1900,
which is honestly just genuinely funny.
it is comic to fall into a ready-made category. Bergson goes on to say the funniest thing of all is to become a category, to crystallize into a stock character. He meant it as a description of comedy. It also just happens to be a description of what a network does to a cartoon character when it gives him a spin-off. So let's actually look at what happened. Fanboy and Chum Chum on Nickelodeon, October 2009. Two idiots, no foil, nobody in the frame who is annoyed by them. Brian Lowry reviewed it for Variety and opened with a sentence that should be on a tombstone. Title turns out to be significantly more inviting than the actual show. He also said that the premiere relied more on noise than coherence, which, yeah. And I gotta be honest with you about something, because this channel doesn't do the thing where the inconvenient fact gets left out. Fanboy and Chum Chum won a Daytime Emmy. Okay, cool. Breadwinners, 2014, Two Ducks, Both Idiots. A critic at Toon Zone reviewed it and without meaning to diagnosed the entire problem in one sentence. Sway Sway is loud and enthusiastic, resembling a slightly smarter SpongeBob, while Badoosh is a more competent Patrick. Read that again. Somebody took the two halves of a working comedy pair, moved them both towards the middle, and was like, that's it, ship it, we got a winner here. A slightly smarter SpongeBob, a more competent Patrick. Nobody's dumb, nobody's the straight man, nobody's reacting to anything. And I'll be fair again, because I have to be. The Los Angeles Times chief television critic, Robert Lloyd, reviewed Breadwinners, and he liked it. And it isn't only those two. Sanjay and Craig on Nickelodeon 2013 is a kid and his talking snake. The AV Club's Mara Eakin liked it, and I want to read you her reason because it cuts against me, and I'd rather say it myself than have 400 of you say it in the comments. So let's do it. The Calvin and Hobbes-like dynamic makes for tons of wacky adventures. Calvin and Hobbes, a pair, a kid, and a foil. So even when one of these shows landed, the thing a critic reached for to explain why was a two-hander. It's not a guy, it's a duo. Sanjay and Craig ended in 2016, and there's a small ugly detail in how. The cancellation was confirmed by the show's own star on Twitter, not by the network. And then there's the thing that took me an embarrassingly long time to notice. Go looking for professional reviews of Breadwinners, because there are none. Sanjay and Craig, none. Nickelodeon put two shows on television for a combined 7 years, and the television criticism industry did not send one person. That's not the show's failing, that's the entire category just going invisible. Which brings us back to Patrick.
This is my grandpa. This is my room. And this is my show.
5 seasons aired of this show. Season 6 and 7 are ordered, and here is the number that actually rearranged the inside of my brain. Go to Rotten Tomatoes and look up the Patrick Star Show. There is no score. There is no critical consensus because in 5 years, 2 critics have reviewed it. 2! And both of them were positive. So it isn't hated, it was never hated. Nobody showed up to have an opinion. Although there is one more number, and it's the strangest one in the whole video. On IMDb, the Patrick Star Show as a series is rated 3.7 out of 10. The individual episodes, however, average to about a 7.6. That gap is people reviewing the idea of the show. That's a review of a press release. The folks who actually sat down and watched an episode gave it a 7.6, which honestly makes it that much sadder. Not worse, just sad. Because the show apparently is fine according to the people who are actually watching it. The show is doing exactly what it was asked to do. It was asked to do the wrong thing. And the same story runs through Teen Titans Go, which is the show everybody in the internet has decided is the villain of modern animation. The movie is at a 92% on Rotten Tomatoes off 132 reviews. And the loudest anti-Teen Titans Go petition in 11 years of people screaming about it got 1,346 signatures. Now that might sound like a lot, 1,000 people, but you gotta think that's for a show watched by millions of children for 13 years. All right, so that thing from the cold open, let's talk about it. In October 2009, a trade magazine called Television Business International sat down with Steven Hillenburg. SpongeBob was 10 years old. It was the most profitable thing that Nickelodeon had. And the interview asked him a completely ordinary question. Have you thought about spin-offs featuring some of the other characters? The show is about SpongeBob. He's the core element, and it's about how he relates to the other characters. Patrick by himself might be a bit too much, so I don't see any spin-offs.
Hey, Patrick, are you angry too?
Yeah,
What's the matter?
I can't see my forehead.
Let's just unpack this again real quick, okay? It's about how he relates to the other characters. He freaking told you, man! 12 years! 12 goddamn years before the Patrick Show even existed. The man who invented Patrick Star was asked whether Patrick could carry a show, and he said that the character only works in relation to somebody else, and then he said no. And I want to be careful here because I'm not going to overstate it and I'm not going to put words in a dead man's mouth. He said, I don't see any spinoffs. He didn't say never. He didn't forbid anything. He was answering a question in a trade interview in 2009. He probably didn't think that much about it, but he did give a reason why it wouldn't work. And the reason seems to be the exact same thing that happened.
Is mayonnaise an instrument?
And it wasn't a one-time thought either, because 8 years earlier in 2001, he described his entire method to an animation newsletter, and it's 4 words long. Put the characters together and watch what happens. You know, like red ants and black ants. Red ants and black ants. Not one ant, not a really funny ant. 2 colors of ant in the same jar, that's the show. That was always the show. So somebody at Nickelodeon read that interview, or didn't probably, and greenlit a series about one ant. What the hell are we doing, Nickelodeon? Make it make sense. And look, I know how this sounds. I'm not saying that the people making the Patrick Star Show are hacks. They are not. I want to make that as clear as I can. Mark Cicerelli and Vincent Waller, I hope I say your names right, have been protecting that show for years. And the voice actor for Patrick, Bill, is still doing the best work of anybody in that cast. I'm saying that they were handed an assignment that Hillenburg had already solved on paper in 2009, and the answer was no. That's all I'm trying to say here. So if the characters are still here, and the shows are still running, and the backlash was never real, what is it that we're actually missing here? And I think it's 2 things, and neither one seems to be the character. The first one is the jar. We didn't lose Ed. We lost Ed and Eddie in the same frame. We lost the cul-de-sac. We lost the second character whose entire function was to look at the first character and just be tired or exhausted or angry or frustrated or mad or any other kind of emotion that you think of when you think of these characters. Every time a network promotes the funny one, they delete the person he was funny at, and then they're confused about why he isn't funny anymore. The second thing is harder to say without sounding like I'm older than I am. In 2003, Ed and Patrick and Cosmo were on 2 or 3 channels at the same time for everybody. You watched it when it aired because there was no other way to watch it. And then you went to school and somebody else had seen the exact same 11 minutes. Now the archetype is spread across Nickelodeon and Paramount Plus and Disney Channel and Hulu and Netflix and Prime and Adult Swim and YouTube and more and more and more and more and more and more and more. And nobody is watching anything at the same time as anybody else because it's all algorithms on the internet. The supply went up and the room just disappeared. And if you want to see how the drift actually ends, just look at what happened to Cosmo in 2024. The Fairly Odd Parents came back. New series, A New Wish on Nickelodeon, May 2024. Cosmo and Wanda are in it. 20 episodes. There was never a second season. There was also never a cancellation. One of the executive producers, Lindsay Katai, described the situation like this. The studio has not given us an official cancellation, but we have obviously all had to seek other work. That's how it ends now. Not with a finale, not with an announcement, not even a cancellation. The show just stops and everybody quietly goes and gets a different job.
That's a horrible idea. You can't just yank people out of their time periods.
Cosmo and Wanda have been on television for 23 years. Nobody told them that it was over either. And then there's Cartoon Network, which is its own small tragedy. Craig of the Creek ended in January of 2025. That was their last long-running original comedy. Their 2026 comedy slate is regular show, The Lost Tapes, which is fantastic, by the way. You should all watch it, but they're releasing it really weirdly. It's cartoons, it's Adventure Time side quests, which is like in its own little thing. They're sending stuff everywhere. It doesn't make any goddamn sense. Every single one of those is a revival, though. That's the point. It's of something that was made 15 years ago. The network that gave us Ed and Billy and Chowder and Flapjack has spent this year selling us its own back catalog, and that started earlier than you'd think. In 2007, Cartoon Network's new president told Thurup Van Orman, who was making Flapjack at the time, what the network wanted going forward. We don't want anything weird or anything where any mom would come out of the kitchen and say, "What are you watching?" Van Orman's answer, by the way, was it's a little late for that. A year later, C.H. Greenblatt was told by the same regime that while Chowder might be his baby, they paid for the parts that made it. So it's a cyborg baby. And there's one more. And this is the one that actually pissed me off. Maxwell Adams made The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy. I've already made a bunch of videos about how that show ended, so I'm not gonna relitigate it here. But in 2021, Adams explained on his own blog why he would never work with that network again. He said the president at the time gave him a public dressing down for ruining Cartoon Network's brand with, and this is the phrase, his hateful fart cartoon. And then they fired him. Now put all three of those on a timeline. 2007, the new president says, no more weird. 2008, the guy who made Billy and Mandy's gone. 2009, Chowder's creator gets told his show is a cyborg baby. 18 months. That's the window where Cartoon Network stopped being a place where somebody could put a monster on television and not have to explain himself. And everything they're airing in 2026 was made before that window closed. So make it make sense. What the hell are we doing? You told the weird guys to stop being weird, and then 17 years later, the only thing you have left to air is the stuff the weird guys made before you told them to stop making the weird guy stuff. So where did the stupid characters go? That's what we're talking about, right? Nowhere. They're right there. There are more of them now than there were when you were 9. One of them has 7 freaking seasons, or at least he will. They just don't have anybody to be stupid at anymore. That's what we want. That's the thing that I actually miss, the thing that you probably actually miss. It's not Patrick specifically. Patrick's fine. Patrick's employed through 2027. I miss Squidward's dumbass face. I miss Wanda's sigh as she smacks him on the back of the head. I miss Double D standing in a wrecked kitchen with his hands on his head, freaking out because Ed did some nasty, gross shit. The dumb one was never the joke. The dumb one was the setup. Somebody else was always the punchline, and we forgot to notice them. And then the industry forgot to notice them. And now we've got 140 channels of guys yelling into an empty room, like me. Danny Antonucci was asked in 2024 whether Ed and Eddie should come back. He said if the network wants to do it, all the best to them. It will fail miserably. My dude! I'm sorry, I'm getting amped up. I'm getting a little riled up if you can't tell. But he's right, and he's right for the reason this whole video is about. You can't bring back Ed. You'd have to bring back the cul-de-sac. God damn it. I make these videos because I love this stuff. Y'all know the drill if you've been here before. If you haven't, please subscribe. I'd really, really appreciate it. I've spent an unreasonable amount of my life thinking about a kid with a monobrow and a chicken in his coat, and I would do it again. God damn it. Hit subscribe. I think I said that already. I'll catch you in the next one. Later.